Uh, Hello everyone, my name is Rohan. I'm a site reliability engineer working in this space for the past couple of years. And today I'm here to share whatever I've learned so far from my experiences and failures. So I'll tell you the story about this one time when I joined an early stage startup. It was a very small team and I was the first infrastructure guy there. And we didn't have any observability systems in place. So whatever failure modes that used to occur, we used to find out about them through our beta users complaining about, hey, the app is not working or the app is slow, or by looking at whatever out-of-the-box observability solutions we got out of the managed offerings we used, such as database, load balancer, and stuff. So there was this incident that used to occur very frequently, that our production Postgres instance would just lock itself for like 5-10 minutes, and then it would just correct itself. And again, the way we used to find out about these issues will be like some user complaining that, hey, the app is not working. And while attempting fixes for this issue, we would always assume that maybe it's the way we are onboarding new users and ingesting data, or maybe it's the way we are deleting data for users when the account is deleted. So we always used to hit this roadblock that we don't know what's exactly going on in the database. So the point I'm trying to get at is that out-of-the-box solutions don't work every time. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of you might be using managed offerings like RDS, Cloud SQL, and whatnot. Sure, they give you insights on CPU, memory, I/O, disk I/O, network I/O, and whatnot. But to actually know what's happening inside a Postgres instance, Postgres maintains this schema called the Postgres catalog. It's called PG catalog, where it stores whatever is happening inside the database. So like if there's a new table, it has a table inside PG catalog called PG_table. So it will create an entry for that table. Similarly for indexes and databases and everything else. So while looking for an observability solution for our use case, we wanted to have three things. We wanted to have stats from PG catalog as some sort of metrics. And we wanted to get value out of those metrics so that whenever some sort of anomaly happens inside the database, we get notified. So we wanted to have like actionable alerts on those metrics. And obviously we wanted a way to visualize those metrics. So can I see a quick show of hands on how many of you are familiar with Prometheus? Right. So we wanted to have, so for people who don't know, Prometheus is an open source time series database primarily used for observability use cases. It has a dimensional data model, and it comes with its own query language called PromQL. It also has this component called Alert Manager, where you can write your alert rules in Prometheus. And whenever an alert rule would fire, it would notify the Alert Manager where you have your notification channels configured, such as Slack, PagerDuty, or email. So we were looking for a way to ingest data from PG catalog to Prometheus. So for this, we came across this very cool open source tool called Postgres Exporter. It's a single Go binary. It's very easy to deploy. So how it works is it runs a set of SQL queries on the PG catalog schema, and it serves it on an endpoint called /metrics. So whenever you hit that endpoint, it will run a set of queries, and it would generate Prometheus metrics for those queries, and it would serve it on the endpoint. So when you set up Postgres Exporter, your setup will look something like this, that you'll have your Postgres Exporter querying data from the PG catalog schema, and you'll have a scrape rule written in Prometheus that, hey, we want to scrape Postgres Exporter every 15 seconds or every 1 minute on how granular you want your observability data to be. So like if you want 4 data points per minute, you can have like a scrape interval of 15 seconds. And then your alert rules would stay in Prometheus, and Prometheus would run those alert evaluations and then forward any notification to Alert Manager. And then those can be forwarded to your notification channels like PagerDuty or Slack. So this is what we did as well. We set up Postgres exporter, we set up Prometheus, Grafana, alert manager, and everything. And then the next time the incident occurred, we saw something like this, that there was a spike in the Postgres explicit logs count in the database, that something was happening. And upon filtering on the access exclusive log through a PromQL query on the metrics, we could see that there was a spike in an access exclusive log, which was probably causing trouble in our database. And the impact of this, we were able to see through another metric which would tell us how are we doing on our ingestion. So you can see here for the same time frame where there was a spike in the access exclusive log, there's a flat line in our ingestion rate. So right, we have all our observability data now. So how do we get notified? So in this case, what we did was we took this PromQL query and wrote an alert manager expression like this, where we just defined that if there is a spike in the access exclusive log count in the database for more than 2 minutes, just send it to alert manager, and the alert manager would page the guy who is on call or notified in the Slack channel. So in Slack, it looks something like this. So that's the general idea on how, like these were some of the examples of some out-of-the-box metrics that comes out of Postgres exporter. But if there's something that's not in Postgres exporter, it has a cool feature called custom queries. So you can write SQL queries in Postgres exporter and generate Prometheus data from that. So for example, there's this query that can list down all the indexes with the times they have been scanned and the size of those indexes. And the response to this query looks something like this. The first 3 columns are the identifiers, that what schema table or the index name is, and the last 2 columns are how many times that particular index has been scanned or what is the size of that index. So you can write a config in Postgres exporter where you can define in the metrics block that you want these columns as Prometheus labels and the bottom 2, like the last 2 columns, which are our actual values as metrics. So in this case, the index scan is the counter metric and the size bytes is a gauge metric because it can increase and decrease. And this would generate a Prometheus metric that would look something like this. So now you have anything that you can query from SQL as Prometheus metrics, and then you can write your alert manager alert rules or queries in Grafana to visualize. So in this case, I'm running a rate PromQL expression on the index scan metric. So I can see in which time frame the index was being scanned the most number of times and where it was not being scanned at all. So that's the metric part on like how I prefer to sort of get statistics out of Postgres. But while solving for observability for Postgres, there's this one cool Postgres feature that I like to use called the auto-explain extension. So auto-explain, it's a shared preload library which you can enable, and you can set a threshold where if any statement takes more than a certain time, it runs explain on that and print it as a log line. So in this case, this particular statement took more than 100 milliseconds, that is 300 milliseconds, and you could see it in the Postgres logs with the query text and the query plan. So like if you are using something like AWS RDS, you can have it in CloudWatch logs and then couple this with the metrics you have exported to sort of correlate between your anomalies in metrics and the logs. So like if there's a spike, you can just correlate the data that during the spike, these were the statements that were impacted. And yeah, I guess that was about it on how I prefer to solve observability for Postgres. Questions?
Any questions?
I think there's one there.
How do you prefer to store the metrics, like the
Sorry?
telemetry data? Where do you store the data?
The monitoring
Processing,
data.
yeah.
Prometheus is a time series database. So
So you use the inbuilt one.
yeah. So like Prometheus has multiple there are multiple ways to run Prometheus based databases. So like if you want to have a distributed Prometheus, there's Victoria metrics. But like Prometheus in itself is a database that can store time series data.
Okay.
Can you show the last slide?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just the query on the metadata, right?
Yeah, it could be any SQL query that just takes long.
Okay, so you are taking example of the.
Yeah, it's just an
okay,
example.
that's not
So any statement that crosses a certain threshold. So
Yeah.
in auto explain, you can also enable this parameter called log_analyze, where it would execute analyze on all the statements and log any one that just crosses the threshold. So all the statements running on the database will be analyzed.
Yeah, I misread it.
Yeah, sorry? No, it doesn't rerun. It runs analyze on all the statements executing on the database. It does have some performance impact, but that's sort of negligible. There are benchmarks available on the internet. Explain is the plan, but if you run analyze, it actually runs the statement. But the queries do get analyzed. But I don't know how it does it internally, but the plan you get will be after the queries are analyzed. And no, just the plan. It won't give you the data.
Yeah, in case of cloud database, right? I see that multi-target option is in beta. Like, do you run one Postgres exporter per database or
No,
per
so
cluster?
Postgres exporter can query from multiple databases.
It is there because the
Yeah.
exporter doc says the multi-target option is in beta right now.
So,
Do you
so I also saw it in the documentation that if you write comma separated Postgres strings, it can just query multiple.
That's how you do it, like one
Yeah.
exporter across all the clusters.
Yeah.
Do you have any snippet for the custom query?
Sample.
Yeah. No, how you configure the exporter for that?
So, this can reside in a YAML file, and you can pass it as a flag in the exporter when you're running it. And this is how the configuration looks like. So for this particular query, these columns need to be mapped as labels, and these columns need to be mapped as counter metrics and gauge metrics.
Yeah, we are getting debug log regarding the Postgres exporter, right? So can we close that? Like just want the logs of error and fatal. So can
Sorry?
we Postgres exporter giving us a debug log, right? It will store somewhere logs. So can we stop that debug logs?
I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not PG log. It's like a Postgres exporter log. Like means it's a Postgres exporter log. So I am saying it's not Postgres log, it will be the Postgres exporter log. Like when you are fetching the detail from the Prometheus, it's giving us a log. So I want that log to debug log off. That's all. Yeah.
Any more questions? I guess that's it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rohan.